My name is Simon, and welcome to the presentation of perspectives in psychology today. Now we have the slide 1, which is the introduction, which describes the key ideas and elevation and their main assumptions and theories, compare them and discuss them, and also how it is applied in the real world in the contemporary issues such as mental health and workplace well-being. Now we begin. Behaviorism development in the early 20th century through the work of psychologists such as John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner. It focuses entirely on the observable behavior that can be measured and tested, rejecting introspectives and the study of internal thought. Behavioralists argue that learning occurs through conditioning, either classical conditioning as demonstrated by Pavlov or operant conditioning as shown by Skinner. According to the view, the environment plays a central role in shaping behavior, meaning nature of more importance than nature. Now we move on to the slide 4. Now we come to cognitive psychology, and this is the overview of it. Cognitive psychology emerged in the year 1950 as reaction against behavioralism and neglect of mental processing. It views the mind as an information processor, much like a computer, taking in information and processing it, and then at the end of the day, producing information or response. Cognitive psychology study functions such as perception, memory, problem solving, and decision making. This perspective recognizes that both biological and environmental factors influences how we think and behave, creating it more balanced approach than behaviors. Now we come to the next slide, which is the key assumptions of behaviorism. And now behaviorism's strength lies in its scientific approach. It focuses on behavioral behavior, made psychology more measurable and objectives. Pavlov's and Skinner's experiment provides reliable, replicable evidence that learning occurs through association and reinforcement. However, behaviorism has been criticized for ignoring internal processes such as thinking, motivation, and emotions. It is also environmentally deterministic, implying that behavior is entirely controlled by external factors and that people have little free will. In conclusion, behaviorism is valuable for understanding how learning occurs, but it also reduces human complexity in behavior to simple cause and effect of mechanisms. Now we move on to the next slide, which is slide 6, which is the cognitive psychology and the key evaluation of assumptions. Cognitive psychology focuses on internal processing, provides a deeper understanding of how people think and learn. It uses scientific methods including experiments and brain imaging to study mental function objectively. This has led to the practical implications such as cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the CBT, and also improvement in education. However, critics argue that the mind as a computer analogy oversimplifies human behavior thinking. Some cognitive studies are conducted in artificial settings, meaning their results may lack ecological validity. And also, in conclusion, overall, cognitive psychology gives important insight into human thoughts, but it doesn't also reflect the complexity of the real world or of the real world human behavior. Now we come to behaviorism and its key assumption by Pavlov and Skinner. Pavlov classical conditioning research demonstrates how dogs learn to associate a bell with food, showing how involuntary response could be considered. B.F. Skinner later explained this through operant conditioning, showing how voluntarily behaviors can be shaped by reinforcement and punishment. Their work is highly empirical, providing strong evidence for how learning occurs through environmental interaction. And however, most of their research was considered on animals, limiting it generally to human beings. They also ignore internal cognitive and emotional process that influences human behavior. And in conclusion, Pavlov and Skinner laid the foundation for experimental psychology, but their focus was too narrow to fully explain complex human behavior. And now we move to the next slide, which is cognitive theory, which we have Piaget with their perspective. And here it says Piaget proposed that children go through 4 stages of cognitive development, each characterized by different ways of thinking and reasoning. On the other hand, it emphasizes the role of the social and cultural interaction in learning introduction for the concept of the zone of proximal development. Their theories have had a major influence on modern education and teaching methods, encouraging active learning and collaboration. Researchers such as Hughes in the year 1975 studied supports of Piaget's ideas, but also suggests that children can be achieved more advanced thinking earlier than he believed. And Piaget on the other stage says have been criticized for being too rigid and culturally biased, whilst the other academician also have the ideas are difficult to test scientifically. Overall, both theories have made valuable contribution. Through theories may not be applied universally to all learners. And now we move to the slide 9, which is similarities and differences. Behaviorism and cognitive psychology shares a commitment to scientific research, using experiment to gather evidence. However, behaviorism focuses on external, observable actions. However, cognitive psychology looks at the internal mental processing. Behaviorism aligns with nature and hard determinisms, and also suggesting that our environmental controls us. Cognitive psychology, in contrast, recognizes both nature and nurture, allowing for some free will. Behaviorism in reductionist, that is, it simplifies that behaviors to stimulus and response, which is cognitive psychology, takes a more holistic view, acknowledging the complexity of thoughts. Both perspectives have advanced psychologically, but they differ how they explain why we behave the way we do. Now we move on to the contemporary issues of the overview. Psychology perspective can be applied to modern issues including mental health, diversity, and workplace well-being. Behaviorism have influenced behavior therapies and education, while cognitive psychology has informed cognitive behavior therapy and learning strategies. In the next slide, it will evaluate each perspective, contribute to understanding and addressing contemporary psychology issues. And now we come to this 11th slide, which is behaviorism in its application and evaluation. Behaviorism have a strong real-world application. It underpins behavior modification techniques such as token economics in school and systematic dispensation for phobias. Research by McGrath and College and colleagues in the year 1990 demonstrates that the success of behavioral techniques is treating phobia. This approach is practical, measurable, and supported by empirical evidence. However, it is mainly addressed symptoms rather than the underlying causes of mental health problems. Some critics also raises ethical concerns as behavior techniques can be used to control or manipulate human behavior. And in conclusion, behavioral methods are effective for certain behaviors, but limit in addressing complex emotions and cognitive issues as well. And now we come to the slide 12. It says cognitive psychology has been instrumental in developing cognitive behavior theory, or CBT. Beck works in 1976 and later studies as Butler, also in the year 2006, provides strong evidence of cognitive psychology, also informs and provides strong evidence for CBT's effectiveness in treating anxiety and depression. And also, cognitive psychology also informs education and workplace training by providing problem-solving solutions, attention, and decision-making. And however, CBT requires individuals to be self-reflected and willing to engage, which isn't always possible for everyone going under that treatment. And also, it may overlook biologically and social factors that influences mental health. And also, cognitive approach have a highly effective and evidence-based that work best when combined with other perspectives for more comprehensive treatment. And in conclusion, in summary, both behaviorism and cognitive psychology have made a vital contribution in understanding human behavior. Behaviorism provides scientific rigor and practical techniques, while cognitive psychology expands our knowledge and thoughts and learning. Each has its strengths and weaknesses, but both together offers more complete picture of how people think, learn, and behave. Modern psychology benefits most when the perspectives are integrated rather than viewed in isolation. And in conclusion, the studies and theories mentioned in this presentation includes Pavlov, Skinner, Piaget, and the rest. And the reference provided is a scientific foundation for the advance and evaluation presentation throughout my slide for today. Thank you very much for the presentation.